Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
Algorithms versus authenticity. China's youth are skipping the apps and heading to the open-air market. We'll find out what's drawing them to the noise, the food, and the spontaneity. This is the revival of Ganji and why the future of travel might just be in the past. We're live from our studios in Beijing. This is Roundtable. I'm Steve. Thanks very much for being with us today. And for the show, I'm joined by Fei Fei and Yushan. First up. Once seen as an old-fashioned way to buy vegetables and other things, China's traditional Ganji, visiting open-air markets or rural fairs, is making an unexpected comeback among young people. Across the country, historic markets and rural fairs are turning into lively hotspots filled with street food and handmade crafts and coffee stands and, of course, cultural experiences. In an age of online shopping and algorithm-driven life, why are young people suddenly drawn to the human connection of the market? And what does this revival say about how a new generation wants to travel and shop and maybe just experience everyday life? Yushan and Fei Fei, a good day to you both. I guess we should start with the term itself, Ganji, because many of our audience members might not be so familiar with that. So what is it?
Well, when you think about Ganji, just think about a big market or a big offline fair where people go and go shopping. And in the ancient time, it was for exchanging stuff. I exchanged 2 chickens, for example, for 1 geese.
You did?
For example,
sorry.
in the ancient times, somebody bring his cart in exchange for like a few barrels of wine or something. So that's what Ganji used to mean. In the earliest documentation of Chinese people going Ganji, that actually can be traced all the way back to Shang and Zhou dynasties. That's around 1600 to 256 BC. So traditionally, they were just regular gatherings, like I said, where villagers, local people would buy and sell essentials or exchange goods like fresh produce, fresh vegetable, grains, and everything. But nowadays, it's becoming less of a functional, grounded way for exchanging goods, but for the young people to gather offline and experience a real-life, down-to-earth kind of buying groceries, especially for buying groceries. So that's where the whole trend comes from.
So a long time ago, it wasn't so much about shopping, meaning exchanging currency for goods. It was about exchanging goods for goods. I have this, you have that, let's trade.
Yeah. And that's also set into the broader landscape of how the rural areas in China is set up. It's like a lot of villagers, they live really far away from each other. I, for example, grow rice and I need some geese, for example.
Yeah.
And they would gather at a certain point of the time in a designated place. For example, in some places, they would gather, for example, 3 times a month so that they can exchange things. And then later on, in turning into modern times, it translates into, shopping for your daily necessities, like shopping for clothing, doing your haircuts, and also grocery shopping. So there are also services at these gatherings as well. And I think that's also one of the reasons that are luring a lot of the young people to these places.
Does that element of the markets of the Ganji still exist? If I bring a goose, can I trade it for something?
I think so.
Still, yeah. I heard of one of my relatives in northeastern part of China. She grew a lot of vegetables in her garden, and she couldn't finish all of them. So she just took to the closest G fair that she can get and sell those vegetables. So she made around like 1,000 yuan a year just by selling and growing these vegetables in her garden.
Well done indeed. Yeah, there's a social element to this too that I think we'll touch on a little bit later. But how have the markets transformed these days? What do these Ganji mean now?
Well, nowadays it's more of a leisure activity for the digital generation, especially the younger generation nowadays. For example, every Wednesday when the market opens, opens in Dangwu Town in southwest China's Guizhou province, the streets are packed with nearby university students. So it's mainly because it's only like it takes a 10-minute drive or a walk from Huaxi University Town in Dangwu Town.
Campus is next door.
Yeah, the campus is nearby, and you see all the young people, the university students, hunting for cheap, warm jackets or just snacking on spicy, crispy, fried potato chips. You remember those potato chips? Well, while we paid our visit to Guizhou last year, it was so good.
Spicy, it has this tanginess of salty and spiciness.
Salty and spicy.
From the local
really
market.
Good.
Yummy.
Yeah. And also there's the intangible cultural heritage market, especially now that we mentioned Guizhou province. There is one that's super popular on online traveling platforms that I want to go to so much, but we didn't really have time for it last year. It's called Xiuli Tao. It's a market that is well known in Kaili in Guizhou, where they sell intangible heritage little cultural products there. So there, they also call it Ganji in that market, but that turns out to be a cultural showcase because visitors don't just buy silver ornaments or little handmade bags. They can actually sit down and make one themselves, make all the artifacts or handicrafts with the artisans locally.
Oh, cool.
And spend the morning there, spend a whole day there. So yeah, it's a very deep cultural experience.
Experience economy.
Yeah,
Right.
on some level. And I have another example. For example, in Ningxia, they have also a very similar market for the Jingui market. It's basically, it was held like every 3 times of every month. And that market in the past, it used also to be like a gathering for about 20, for the surrounding 20 villages to come here and exchange for clothing and daily necessities. And now they're welcoming at least 30,000 people on a daily basis.
30,000 a day.
Yeah, and
Wow.
you can see it's not only just the villagers nearby, and also a lot of people, especially in the nearby rural, urban areas, are also coming here. Maybe some of them are coming here out of nostalgic reasons, you know, going back to the feeling of my childhood. And there are other young people that are trying to have a bit of a human interactions, I would say.
Well, maybe it's for nostalgic reasons, but it could be because they found out about these types of markets online, because with the growing popularity amongst the younger crowd out there, there's a lot of presence on social media.
Yeah, indeed. Because I was just searching on RedNote this morning, and the most recommended nearby ji for me will be the one in, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that one is in Shahe, in eastern Beijing, right?
Western north
Western
Beijing.
Oh, wow. No wonder I'm so close to it, as said by the app. They sell fruits and vegetables and fresh produce, like many other ji that's going viral on social media nowadays. And but it's also give you this sensation, like you mentioned, Fei Fei, that a lot of people say they get reminded of when they were young. They go out and they were taken out by their parents to the outdoor market and hand picking carrots and potato with dirt on them. You know, that feeling of just going and bargaining among the aunties and uncles and trying to get a fair price.
That dirt to me represents freshness, because I can still remember being at my grandparents' house, and that was my job at dinner time. My grandma would send me out to the garden and say, I need 4 potatoes or something like that. And out I would go, and Grandpa, I need 4 potatoes. Okay. And then we would dig them up, and, you know, they're covered in dirt. So yeah, I still have that connection. Yeah. So there you go. Nostalgia. That is part of the attraction, isn't it? During the Spring Festival, the market fairs, the traditional market fairs, that became a new way for a lot of young people to celebrate the holiday too. 2.4, or was it 24? Yeah, 24 billion views on one major platform talking about Ganji. Unbelievable, right? Online views for a market in Shandong province. That was a separate case. That alone had 400 million views. So it's proof. And I guess this would be a sign of the modern times, a little bit of a mix of the old and the new. You've got these old style traditional markets that are getting 400 million views online, and that's why the crowds are flocking there.
Yeah, and so that online view has been translated into offline in reality. For example, in another province called Anhui, and they also have a market fair, a Ji, in Chuzhou during the Spring Festival holiday. And that market on the peak day saw 150,000 visitors in one single day. And over half of these people are young visitors coming from other places other than from local areas.
Tourist destination.
Yeah, so you can see that it's not about local people gather at a designated place for exchange anymore. It's more of a holiday. I would say becoming a check-in point for a lot of young visitors.
What do you mean?
Like as the Shahe fair, that Shahe market that Yushan just talked about. I think if you search on Red Note or any social media platform now for looking for places I need to go in Beijing, and Shahe market can be on that list.
That's where I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
really?
Among with, for example, Palace Museum, along with Summer Palace, you will see Shahe market on that list as well. Is where I think it's also have this comprehensive experiences that you can offer, that this place can offer. You can basically try all the snacks that you want to try from this area in one stop. And then you can exchange, really talking to the aunties selling the groceries and learn about her life, her local life here. And that's the authenticity coming from these marketplaces.
I watched a video about that place this morning, actually, and the lady who was making the video said, now, if you're a visitor to this market, you can get a sense of how it used to be. There's a real sense of community here. It's very humble. If you're a tourist, would you want to visit here? She said, well, yeah, it's a little bit out of the way if you don't mind, traveling a little bit, but it's definitely worth a visit. So when I watched that video, it's this huge open air market, and clothing, old electronics, I think I saw. And you might think like, oh, okay, is this some sort of like fancy glass enclosed setup? No, it's a blanket on the ground.
Yes.
Right.
And a grandpa selling some, watches and stuff from maybe the 1960s or 70s. I'm not sure. But then my favorite part, and I've experienced this before, the food. Yeah, you can buy little street snacks and stuff and walk and eat, sure. But you can also find places to sit down and have a meal.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite thing to do, is to actually sit there and hang out with the elders, the community elders, and just enjoy your food.
But just not all fairs are about groceries and, sitting down and having a bite on the freshly cooked food. But nowadays, many young Chinese are also, they are even willing to purchase tickets just to get in some exclusive fairs. That kind of astonished me. Well, me, myself, I was in one last year, but the ticket was a gift, so I didn't really pay for it. And that's the only reason I was there, to get inside to a half semi-indoor fair. They also call it Ganji. They're a ji for young people to hang out. And most of the little handicrafts and cultural products are very innovatively designed. And you can see it's young people themselves standing behind the stall and selling stuff. But here in Beijing, take Beijing, for example, in March alone, Beijing has announced over 15 different market fairs, just like this. And these aren't just average open-air stalls. They are highly curated events where tickets costing from several yuan to 100 yuan, or roughly 14.5 US dollars, often sell out instantly and even get flipped by scalpers. That's where I find it hard to understand. People are actually paying for tickets in order to spend.
I've actually remember later last year, there was a sort of a bakery market in Beijing, and I tried to get in and it was impossible because the tickets were just sold out the minute they opened sale.
Oh, it was specifically a bakery market.
A bakery market.
Yeah, sometimes it's themed.
Yeah, so they call it the bread market. So you are not only having like bakeries coming from the city of Beijing, they also have bakeries coming from all over the country.
Okay, interesting.
So that's why a lot of people want to go there, is that you can try bread and bakery products from, for example, Ningbo or Hangzhou or Sichuan in one place.
That's cool. And I understand why they sell tickets. I mean, if they didn't, it would just be flooded with people, right? There'd be so many people there. Okay, because I know that there are other different types of market. For example, in Beijing and Shenzhen, some markets have evolved into almost like an aesthetic festival of sorts, and they'll sell things like their own handmade goods, like designer jewelry or something like their own designed jewelry, excuse me. Those two would qualify as Ganji, because when I heard Ganji, I had it in my mind that it had to be like an old school, old style, traditional marketplace. But it doesn't have to be that. Any of the examples we just gave would qualify?
Well, I think in traditional sense, Ganji definitely means going to a marketplace in a rural setting.
Right.
And most of the time, this market is open-aired. And the products are selling at this marketplace are not fixed, meaning that you can get everything here, and it can also be very flexible. You may be running into this clothing vendor today and you may not see him tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I think in today's setting, especially in big cities like Beijing and Shenzhen, they have their own twist, taking advantage of this trend of young people going to Ganji.
How so?
Is that they're creating their own market, meaning that it's very similar. It's also, for example, running on a regular basis, not happening every day. It's happening in this place at this particular time of the month, for example. And they are creating a community, a sort of a space of their own. Maybe it's themed, for example, the handcraft market or the bakery market I just talked about. We also have like market for organic farming, for example, happening every weekend in a certain place in Beijing. And they can also be quite also comprehensive, meaning you can get everything, like the original traditional market that you have in mind. And that is happening happening at the same time, parallelly. For example, in Beijing and in Suzhou, I would guess, in cities like Suzhou, they have this themed weekend fair happening, and they're also having this traditional market that's open every day, open to the local people for grocery shopping. And at the same time, travelers are also going there for snacks.
I love these types of places, and I've seen them in other countries too. I remember when I was in Los Angeles, I stayed downtown, and right downtown LA on Sunday afternoons, they have the organic farmers market. So they block off one of the side streets downtown, and they put out tables and chairs in the middle of the street, and then on the sides of the streets you have the farmers selling their vegetables and stuff, but you also have young entrepreneurs like making kale smoothies or fresh juice. Like it's all like, it's LA, right? So it's like this hippie ultra healthy crowd, but like fresh made guacamole like right on the spot, and they'll package it so you can take it home, and people absolutely love it. And when I was there, it was a mix of all ages. It truly was. So I think it's easy to understand why it's popular, but are there any specific reasons given here in China why this has suddenly become so hot with young people?
Well, young people here in China, as you mentioned, we are very enthusiastic about going to markets like this because, well, we can find a sense of reality through just wandering off into such a ji and try to gan it as if it's like in the ancient times. So unlike the algorithm-driven online shopping or standardized malls where you kind of know what to expect, these market fairs, they give you this raw, if not unfiltered experiences. You never know what kind of products you're going to run into in the next corner. So that's kind of agreed by different experts too, one of them being Li Hongyan, a professor in the Department of Media and Communication at China Agricultural University, saying that just being in the market is not too much about what you specifically want to look for, eat, or see, but rather that big atmosphere full of vitality. You just go join them. Even if you don't really buy anything, you kind of get relieved. Yeah. So for young people, that's more about the vibe and the relief feeling, if not leaving, if not taking out here as if it's a weekend trip rather than going out for shopping grocery.
Yeah, I also have this visitor. He went to this Jingui market in a town in Ningxia. He said that, in the cities, in supermarkets, Prices are clearly marked, and you can't see how things are made. And from entering the supermarket to check out, the whole process is self-service without any interaction with a human being.
True.
But
people like that, by the way.
Yeah, some people like that. But on this kind of market here are quite different. You are physically close, sometimes shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And you even, strangers can start talking with each other very naturally. So there is a strong sense about emotional connection here. So that's why he said he sometimes just enjoy bargaining at markets. And so he started doing this intentionally. It's not really about how much he can save.
Yeah, right.
But more about the process.
Well, I know that, or as far as I know, the haggling culture in China has died away a little bit. Like you don't negotiate as much, or people don't negotiate as much as they used to. You're not going to go into a supermarket and negotiate the price of a grape.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But when you go to the Ganji, when you go to these markets, is that expected almost? Or let me rephrase that. Is it accepted/expected
I think
to negotiate?
on some level, yes.
Yes, even for those who, like I mentioned earlier, you have to buy tickets in order to get in. Since they design their own products, whether it's jewelry or handicrafts, you can always negotiate a price, since it's like trying to make friends with the vendors in the first place and trying to get to know their work afterwards. I think the communication side, the social side, sometimes weights even more than just merely buying things and paying for the price. So that's where it leaves such a margin for price variations. And also, in the meantime, you get to meet very interesting people, and they tend to appreciate you even more sometimes, those vendors, because you're interested in their products.
Is there a strategy? I mean, teach the tourists who are listening a little bit of a strategy. If you go to a traditional market, what is the proper way to negotiate?
Well, depending on the products you want to buy. If you're buying groceries, don't bargain too much.
Yeah.
You can ask
cheap
for,
enough sometimes.
Yeah, you can ask for moling.
Okay. What's moling?
Moling is like just leave out the changes. Like, for example, if the whole bag of vegetables or fruits you're buying is like 14.5 yuan, you can ask for moling, leaving, you don't have to pay the 0.5. You just pay 14.
Okay.
So that's
just convenient for everyone.
Yeah, and that's like the space of bargaining that you can get from a grocery vendor.
Okay, let's role play here, Fei Fei. I'm a shopper, you're a seller, and I want to buy your coat at the Ganji. Hello, nice lady. How much is your coat?
280.
That's too expensive. I will pay, what should I say?
Like, for example, 50.
I'll pay 50. See, that seems insulting to me. This is why I'm not a good negotiator. That seems way too low.
You have the guilt of...
Yes, exactly. But you're saying you should go low.
You should go low. You should try low and see the reaction of that vendor. If he or she is like, I'm not making any money with that price, that sometimes means you're approaching to their price range.
Okay, let's go back to our scene. Okay, so you said, what did you say, 280?
Yeah, 280.
I'll pay 50.
I'm not making any money with that
Keep
price.
Keep going.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'll give you 300. This is
tri-
why my wife doesn't let me pay for anything.
The trick that I learned is that if you want to pay for, like, for example, 240 for something labeled as 280, you go at the very beginning, say, how about 200? I think 200 is
too much. And the vendor will be like, okay.
Yeah. No, the
really?
vendor.
That means you paid too much for that.
Oh my goodness.
See, you need to learn too, Yushan, I guess.
Fine.
I think another reason probably is that, this is so different from everything online. We mentioned it and we talk about it all the time. Shopping, so much is done online. So much of our interactions these days are done online. And this is just the complete other end of the spectrum, isn't it?
On some level, but I think this trend is also got amplified online as well. The reason, for example, why Shahe market is so famous in Beijing Part of the reason is because some people are pushing that, promoting this market online. And that's got its fame out there. It got into the must-visit list of Beijing.
Yeah.
So this is, I think there are also jobs that are being created visiting these different markets.
Like what?
They are called Ganji, 主播, the hosts for Ganji. Like their
Like a
jobs
tour
around about visiting different markets at different places.
Oh, I think I've seen somebody doing that.
yeah,
Live
and-
streaming. Oh, I'm at this part of the city, and I'm at this market, and here's what I see.
And-
like not an influencer per se, but almost like a travel channel.
Sorta.
in a
Yeah,
way.
sort of. And they are demonstrating what you can buy. For example, they will have this kind of challenge, what I can get with 100 yuan at this market type of video.
Oh, okay. I have 100 yen. Let's see how much I can spend or how
Yeah.
many things I can buy with
Yeah.
this. This has to be great for, well, when we hear about tourism stories, right? From Europe, we covered it, I think, a long time ago on the show. Some places were upset that so many tourists were visiting and it was, ruining the cities. People don't like it if their cities get overrun. I don't think we would see this here, right? I can't imagine the vendors in the Ganji being upset that suddenly, hundreds of millions of views online and now they're so crowded, these markets. This would be a good thing for the vendors, I guess.
Yeah, the vendors that I made friends with often look for the Z's instead of the other way around. They want to get more exposure through people attending Ganji, and now that it's a trend, that's what vendors are looking for too. And also, we spoke about how the fairs in Guizhou has been very culturally designed. A lot of people attend. Indeed, to date, one of their cultural entertainment activity holding one of the fairs called the Village Tea, which is like a supermodel kind of fashion show sort of activity. That one has held over 270 sessions and more than 930 shows. That's attracting over 80,000 participants from both home and abroad to walk the stage and showcase just hundreds of different types of clothing and
like high-end designer stuff. Like these are official fashion shows.
Not necessarily. It's just clothings that represent the 56 ethnic groups locally,
cool.
or were from outside of Guizhou province even, and that is bringing real differences, tangible differences to local people, such as the jewelry design. One said in an interview saying that many tourists watch the show and develop a strong desire to get a part of that, the fashion design as souvenirs. So they come to our jewelry shop and they just find us after the show and try to look for the same style or request a customized piece, even just out of the huge impression they got from the show.
Oh,
so that's
cool.
how it's the whole industry of tourism is also getting involved in fairs like this.
It's a different style, isn't it? Because you could never do that at like an official fashion show during fashion week in a big city around the world, right? It's not that type of interaction.
Not
No.
really, no.
They don't have that kind of barriers, I would say, and most of the participants are villagers nearby. And I think there is also a report from Guizhou Daily, for instance, when I'm talking about this village tea cultural events and also a lot of intangible heritage markets connected to these kind of events. They now involve more than 50 villages and over 30,000 artisans. So about 15,000 of them were able to work steadily from home, and other villagers that participate in the event can earn an average of 12,000 yuan a year.
Pretty good.
So that means it's more, I think that the targeted market is a bit different from the runway high-end designer.
I think that's a very good point, because now that we talk about the differences, those luxurious brand doing models walking over their tea stage, that's in order to make the products, the clothing look like you can pay for it, like you can afford one.
Yeah.
But the purpose of these village tea are meant for you to know that, okay, this is nice and I am able to buy it.
Yeah.
Like anything
You can
else.
probably buy 4 or 5 if you really
Exactly.
want to. One color for each day of the week. Are there any complaints? I wonder, though, because, maybe the vendors aren't complaining about the huge numbers of crowds or huge increase in crowds because That's more customers potentially for them. But what about from the visitor's point of view? Are people thinking, because we'd hate to see that, right? Now these places have become hot places to go. It would be a shame if the popularity was short-lived.
Well, I think one challenge, especially when it comes to the city area markets, is about they're selling very similar products. When it comes, for example, to handicrafts, handcraft, that means some beaded jewelry, some silver jewelries with very similar designs. And that sort of losing the authenticity what the visitors are looking for. Like they go into different markets looking for different things.
Yeah.
But if they went to different places and realizing you're just selling the same jewels that I can buy everywhere.
We were in Thailand last year. This exact thing happened. We went to a night market, and my wife saw a dress, and we both agreed, like, wow, this is a beautiful beach dress, like perfect for the summertime hot temperatures. How much is it? Oh, that's a bit expensive. We'll think about it, and we'll make our way back. It's a street market. Thinking this is a one of a kind. I had it in my mind. This is the only dress like this on planet Earth. We walked 4 feet that way, and the next shop was selling the exact same dress. And then the next shop over was selling a similar dress. So yeah, that it does though, doesn't it? It does take a little bit away from the experience. I think too, what can happen is that maybe the vendors might see an opportunity here because, whoa, there's so many people here now. Let's bump up our prices. And that would take away from the experience too.
So sometimes when it comes to hosting such a fair, it really comes down to how you balance everybody's benefits, not only from the foot traffic side. Okay, you are charging young people tickets, fine. We want to come anyway. But also on the vendors, because a lot of vendors are saying that the booth fees, for example, the travel expenses for them to travel all across China in order to arrive and open a little stall at this fair. And also that comes with accommodation locally too. That can all push total costs for them to participate to an even unacceptable ratio for them. Like they're paying money just to showcase their products, and a lot of the times maybe they don't even get those costs covered after the fair is over. So that's something to consider when we host such a fair. Like how can we make it really enjoyable for all, for every party?
And I guess if they are becoming more popular, and I think we've all agreed it's a great thing, having the infrastructure in place to deal with these increased crowds is important too, so that again everybody can have a great experience. Things like washroom facilities, places to park, things like that would go a long way. Ganji. I still need to work on my negotiation skills. I've overpaid for Fei Fei's coat.
Apparently me too.
Yeah, exactly. Before we visit our next market, our next Ganji Yushan, we have to do that.